We are back with WCS EU Challenger. Hope you enjoyed the break as we get ready to move on to our second match of the day. My name is PtitDrogo, and I'm joined by Jeff in Control Robinson at the desk now. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good, but I am actually going to henceforth go as Fear in Control.
Fear Control?
Fear Control.
Fear Control. I like it.
Thank
I can
you.
dig it. Now, I know that you actually have a really, really awesome show that you did yesterday where you talked about a lot of the other stuff going on in StarCraft. Yeah. So I figured, you know what, we can also talk about a lot of the other awesome stuff going on in StarCraft. In case you've missed it, there's stuff like the GSL. There's going to be more of WCS Challenger coming up. We have Valencia coming up as well. Lots of really awesome StarCraft. You guys should go be sure to check it out.
Yeah, that Morrow Classic series is going to be amazing. I'm really excited for that.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, I heard really good things. I still haven't gotten a chance to watch the GSL match from last night, or I guess depends on time zones where you are.
Night before.
Yeah, about like 40 hours ago or something. Yeah. I've heard really good things about that as well. If you haven't seen it, but we also got some good StarCraft coming up our way. We got our next match. Yeah, this next match I think is going to be pretty cool. Drogo versus.
You're doing the tasteless thing.
Okay, I'll tell you why I think it's going to be cool.
Okay.
All right. So Snute obviously didn't have the best performance at Austin versus specifically Mana, but he still overall had a pretty good performance. He lost to the person who got into the finals, lost to his teammate who he had a lot of mind games and stuff against, but he overall was still looking very good. And Drogo is he was like nicknamed the drone killer because he's a PvZ sniper in a lot of ways. So I think this is going to be a fun match for that reason.
You got me excited. I'm a believer.
All right.
I'm getting ready for it mentally and emotionally.
Spiritually. I am ready to go into Acid Plant, it looks like, for game number 1. You can't just
I don't know what to do with that handoff. When you're like, I'm ready to get into Acid Plant. And I'm like, all right, I'm getting excited about Acid Plant too. No, on paper, this is a really nice matchup. Snute, of course, one of the absolute best, still the highest earner non-Korean, which is amazing. And PtitDrogo, I feel like for these guys, off of that, for them, lackluster performance at WCS Austin, this is interesting for me to see where they go with that, right? Because both these guys are, I want to call them the favorite, but Mana's actually looking so darn good and had such a good Austin that you almost can't because it's kind of a nice group that way. But these are two of the more recent top-performing players. Well, actually, I guess less recent. But
yeah,
still.
it's also pretty interesting, too, because like Snute had a good performance at Austin and got to the round 8 or so before he got knocked out by Mana. But Drogo, on the other hand, actually kind of had a bit of a disappointing Austin. He ended up losing in Group Stage 3. Didn't actually end up winning any of his series, which, you know, it happens. It sucks because there's only 4 WCS Premier events during the year,
right?
Besides, you know, going to BlizzCon and stuff. But it's important to perform, and it sucks when it doesn't happen, but it does happen, right? Sometimes you can just get bad luck of the draw with the groups. You lose 2 series, and you're out of the tournament.
It does happen, PtitDrogo. And that's why I think this is nice. There's a quick turnaround. Valencia is only a couple weeks away from even now, but we just did finish WCS Austin, so it's a very different feel that way. So both these guys probably pretty hungry to give us something else to talk about and show how good they can play. Yeah.
I really want to see if Snute can take this series, because I think if he can take this series, he goes on to the winners match versus Mana. That's like a teammate. I really still, even though Austin went really heavily one-sided, 3-0 in favor of Mana, I still think that Snute is very capable of
You still believe.
I still think that that is a mind-gaming enough series between 2 really close teammates that it could still go either way.
You know what? Your optimism is infectious. I like it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand side of the map. Top of the blue Zerg player from Team Liquid, it is Snute. And spawning up in the top left, we have our red Protoss player. Put your hands together for PtitDrogo.
I like the idea of people at home clapping.
Do you not do that when you watch broadcasts?
Do you?
Sometimes.
You clap at
all?
All right, that's cool. I'm not
Do
gonna
you never cheer for, like, you know,
I do.
Back in the Brood War days or something, you're like watching Jaedong, and you're like, wow.
It's rare. It has to be something amazing, but I've fist pumped in the privacy of my own desk, I suppose.
Okay.
Never clapped, though. I think clapping, I feel like if someone walks in on you clapping by yourself, there's no coming back from that. I guess it depends on how you.
Well,
clap,
if
too.
someone walks in on you when you're clapping by yourself, you're not by yourself, are you?
It's a great question. That's actually very. I like that. If you don't know that you're not by yourself, are you by yourself? Right? Like if someone's hiding in the corner and you think you're by yourself, does that count as being by yourself?
That's a good question.
Right? That's one every 13-year-old boys ask themselves, I think, behind a closed door.
It's like on the subreddit. This is. Oh, what is that? It's like I'm 14 and this is really deep.
Is there a subreddit called that?
Yeah.
God, there's a subreddit for everything, but that sounds amazing. I'm 14 and this is really deep.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Well, okay. I'm going to have to check that out later. Now, PtitDrogo getting a pretty good scout here. Early game for this kind of stuff, to be brutally honest, the weird thing would be seeing Gasless, which I don't suspect Snute's going to kind of do something weird like that. It really broadcasts to the Protoss that you have absolute freedom. You're not in any danger. I'm going to be taking 3 hatches. Like, I'm going to play my game over here. But Zergs have all gone in the route in Legacy of the Void of just always having that gas for the most part. It's like 98%, which is so good because that gives the Protoss so much more to be worried about. Speed can show up. Roach Ravager, just a pure roach. We've seen a lot of that on this map in particular. Something about Acid Plant just screams roaches to these darn Zerg players. And then on the flip side, PtitDrogo is going to go Stargate. He's kind of famous for that, but even if he's not famous for it, that too is the standard in the meta. And to give this a moment of analysis, because otherwise we're just pointing out that this is the normal thing that they always do. Stargate, excuse me, gives you absolute map control. You're going to be able to pick off a couple of the overlords in your part of the area. If you are getting early aggression, you can either go more Phoenix, or you can go a Void Ray, or even Oracle. Basically, all 3 of the Stargate units are pretty darn good against that early aggression. So that's why you see it so much.
And a lot of the time, especially these days in PvZ, you do occasionally see a Protoss player going into the tech before the Stargate, but more often than not, you see it's the follow-up tech after the Stargate that they can go for. And it's going back to what you said, denying that vision so that the Zerg player can't see what the follow-up is.
Right. And that plays to the strengths of Protoss because they can take a fast third, they can take a late third and muscle up, they can go for an all-in. They are the trickster race, which is kind of funny because in the fluff, they're definitely not a trickster race. They're supposed to be like the powerful juggernaut that rolls around destroying things, but
the honorable race that
they're honorable, yeah.
It's very straightforward. Nope.
Not in StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 2,
that's where we
like,
can't
aha! Gotcha. So there's a few more lings here for Snute. It's normal to have about 6 to 8 or something in that area. This is I hope to cancel your third kind of number of lings. Now, obviously, adding more to that would be really weird. That's not Snute's playstyle. But that number right there is hoping to get something done. An early Nexus, a couple of Adepts caught out in the middle of the map, something along those lines.
Okay, well, Oracle and Phoenix are going to be moving forward over to that third, and the Spore Caller's not finished up, so the Oracle can get some damage done here. Even kills off 1 drone, doesn't quite get the second one in time. Ooh. Just going to go after the larva for now.
Yeah, a little bit of clicking around there, so he does, you know, he kills a larva, I guess, and a drone. It's not bad. And this is actually kind of fun, too, to talk about this. It's a little bit of a new style. You see the Stargate, it went Phoenix and then Oracle, and that's it. And now we're going into what could be an Archon drop. However, as I say that, we're seeing Charge being chrono boosted. We're seeing a lot of gateways coming down. So that is the power of Protoss. It can be like, you think I'm doing something normal, and then all of a sudden a huge chunk of units show up and can just end the game. And that's going to be tough because Snute, again, on paper, Snute's kind of thing is having a bunch of queens, a decent number of lings, and if he can sense this coming or just straight up scout it, might even see a Roach Warren, which would make it really hard to crack.
Okay, well, Lings are finally scouting out that third base coming down at 5 minutes and 15 seconds. Definitely a little bit on the later side in terms of thirds you can go for as a Protoss player, but that does mean the Lings are not going to be able to do too much, so Drogo.
Yeah, it's a safe expansion.
Yeah, I guess either good read on the situation or he's seen the Lings and is reacting well to it.
I don't think he saw the Lings. They kept just checking the third. I think, I mean, you do a gateway explosion, then take the expansion because it's just kind of a nice spot to be in where if they do try to cancel that, obviously your production's so high that you'll just flat out be able to defend that. But also you can have the choice to be like, okay, they overcommitted to killing the third. Well, it's a good thing I have my production in place because now I can do some damage. But it's actually Hydra's out fairly early.
Yep.
And that's a Lurker Den as well. Holy Toledo.
Wow, that is a super fast Lurker Den. I haven't seen this kind of play for a really long time, but Massive warp in of Zealots inside the main base. Okay, the Hydras do not get on top of the Warp Prism in time.
No.
There's also another attack over by the third base that Snoot's going to have to deal with at the same time.
And he's going to have a tough time doing it. He just has cut a few corners here, and he's doing something a little bit different here. He is able to deflect the inside main for now. That is going to disrupt the third. Now, the Lurker Den is in actually a really interesting spot. It's going to be hard to scout. So if Snute can survive this phase of the game, his Lurkers may be undetected. Now, the low econ could broadcast a you know, I'm just going to stop because Snute might just die here.
And the Lurker Den has also been scattered at this point.
Yeah.
So even if he does manage to survive, it's been revealed.
One Archon.
I mean, these Archons have to win the game. And Jeff, I'm a believer, but I don't know if I can believe that hard.
No. Warp Prism does get picked off, but even just the units that are here, it's a 40 supply advantage, and Snute taps out. PtitDrogo with the first win of this series. And I got to tell you, I got to point this out. It's kind of a weird thing, but because, again, Austin is so close, Snute's just had bad luck, by the way. So this is like a couple of things that happened in a series against Mana were just really unfortunate. I can't pinpoint exact moments for you guys. If you want to go back and watch it, you'll probably get the gist of what I'm kind of talking about. But here, you said this, and you're exactly right. Snute doesn't typically do something like this. So this was him trying to be different and break the mold, but getting caught horrifically. Like the Archon's showing up when he's at low econ 3-base Hydra with nothing to support it because he's trying to go for fast Lurker is just about the worst combination of things that can happen at that time.
And it wasn't just the typical, oh, here's a Stargate opening, and then I followed up with 4 gateways and getting up 2 Archons and 1 Warp Prism to harass. It was 6 gateways. It was Warp Prism warping in 6 Zealots inside the main base while hitting at another front. Yeah. This is not a super light pressure, normal kind of opening from Drogo. It was a very heavy pressure that was looking to get a lot of damage done, and that's not something you see every day. So yeah, I kind of understand why Snute wouldn't expect something like that.
Yeah, it's tough, and it is something we've seen PtitDrogo do, specifically the walk the Zealots to the third as you're going Warp Prism in the main. It's a really cool touch. I don't know if it's a high-end StarCraft thing where, because if you do it on the ladder, I feel like it gets caught by the 30 lings, just dies for free, and then it starts to kind of snowball from there. But in this case, those 6 Zealots that are going to the third were the real linchpin. Like the main attack, if you give Zerg only one thing to focus on, they can usually kind of deal with that. But it's when it's happening at multiple places that they kind of fall apart. You can't just throw lings at 6 Zealots like that if you don't have a huge number of them. So, and
that's quite literally what we saw, right? The main base, the Zealots all got cleaned up, and there were a massive number of Hydras still left over. Even if the Archons and the Warp Prism survive, Snute handily cleaned up the main base. But if he had had some more of those Hydras over by the third, which of course he had no idea that those Zealots were going to come in, maybe he also holds over there and he doesn't end up losing, 10, 15 workers.
So tough luck for Snute. He does find himself 0-1 in this best of 3, which means he's got to win out from here to be in that much more favored position. If he loses this, he'll go up against Rail, who he had a good series against Mana, by the way. He played pretty well, but that's not a free win either. Rail is one of the better Protoss players in Europe. He doesn't get talked about at all because, again, we kind of glob onto the champion winners, but there's guys like Rail filling up those tournaments that make it hard for those champions to get there, and Snute will have to get past him should he lose either of these potentially next 2 games.
Okay, well, we're going to be getting into game number 2 over here as we start up up here in the top left. We have our blue Zerg player. Once again, in that liquid blue, it is Snute. And spine down here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have our red Protoss player. He is PtitDrogo.
Just kind of keep your eyes on Snute, because again, that's him trying to break away from what he kind of typically does and being punished hard for it. And off the back of a round of 8, as you said, but facing Mana, it's really not the placement. I think round of 8 is fine for most players. Even Snute, who I think is mostly disappointed unless he's at least in the finals. That's not the worst, but it's kind of how he lost that I think can mentally disturb a person and kind of make it hard to compete after that, where you face a teammate, one that you're typically favored against, especially going into WCS Austin. Nobody was counting Mana as one of the top players. And then you get 3-0'd, and the first game is this really weird cannon rush that just kind of mentally unravels you. And then you show up here for WCS first group, and your first match is a tough one. It's PtitDrogo, and you lose in a really unlucky kind of bad way. So Snoot's got to bounce back, and he's one of the fan favorites, one of the best in the business, and it'd be really sucky to kind of watch this continue to be hard on him.
Yeah, and he is definitely one of the players that I think sometimes those losses get to him pretty hard. If you ever go to the Team Liquid threads, actually he doesn't do this anymore, and I'm kind of thankful that he doesn't do it anymore, because I think probably didn't help his situation, but man, after losses, he would go to his Team Liquid fan club thread or the live report thread and make some very, very sad posts about how he was very disappointed in himself, etc. after the games. You can kind of just see and tell, like, he was going to probably start playing worse and worse as those games were going on and as things were starting to go poorly for him.
Yeah, it's tough. Not a lot of people talk about it, but the mental aspect of StarCraft is part, again, of what makes these guys so talented and amazing, and it's very difficult. And Snute has done so well over the years, but has been very public about his struggle with that. And you talk about Team Liquid posts. Even for myself, when I was a pro gamer, that was something after I lost that I really rushed to do too. And it's a weird kind of cathartic thing, because you feel like if you explain yourself, people will be less hard on you. But the weird effect that it has is there are people who are like, oh, okay, you know, I appreciate your honest approach, but it's those couple of bad apples that just take that as fuel, you know, and they just go, oh man, you're really.
Oh, you're telling me what depresses you and makes you really sad and annoyed with yourself.
Yeah,
thank you.
Tough, but that's the life of a pro gamer, and there's different approaches, but it's kind of for me, it's cool that Snute is so public about how he feels about the game, and even though it does come off as whiny at times, it's still a very personable thing that gives us that human approach to the game.
Okay, well, we'll see if he can bounce back. That last game, it definitely sucks. And like you said, he was trying something different. He is going to do something the same as the last game, though. He's going for those same 12 lings to look to try and put some pressure on a third base. Dreamcatcher's a little bit interesting. I've seen Protoss players take either one of these thirds. Do you have a particular preference on this?
Usually you go for, so if you're in the lower right-hand side, you go for the one above the natural. It's just a little bit closer, and then if you knock down the rocks, the pathing to that base is mostly the north side, or they work on the rocks themselves, but you can kind of see that coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, both are totally fine. If one takes the other, it's not like that's an incorrect choice. Double Oracle this time, by the way.
Okay, the lings also reveal themselves to the Stalker and kind of at the front, so Drogo is going to be maybe a little bit more cautious about taking that third base. Oracle does get pushed back after getting 2 worker kills, which is not too bad for just the first Oracle. The second Oracle still coming out.
Yeah, 2 queens and the Spore Crawler there means, though, that the harass is going to be kind of shut down. The hope here for PtitDrogo, if he is, I mean, with 2 Oracles, you're not looking to just scout, by the way. So he's going to show up to perhaps the natural or third and hope to encounter a single queen and maybe a Spore Crawler, or ideally just a Spore Crawler. And if you can do that with a healthy Oracle leading in, you can go ahead and get a few more drones. Because double Oracle is a little bit interesting, right? Like 2 Oracles does not really accomplish anything that the 1 Oracle can't do outside of harass. You're still scouting with it. Yeah, okay, you get a few more stasis wards, but otherwise, you know, 2's a bit of an investment. It kind of looks like he's reserved to just saying, okay, I'll be at home though with it. So we'll see.
Yeah, technically has not scouted out and confirmed 100% that there's not some weird 3-base all-in or something coming after seeing a lot of those lings early. The Oracles are going to be useful for trying to save this third at least. And he's also moved across the map with all of his Adepts. This is, I feel like, his spirit animal unit, the Adepts, and just going after drones is kind of what Drogo does. That's like his specialty.
And they show up at a really awkward time. The lings are going to come over here, but they are just nothing to this number of Adepts. Roaches are coming out, so I guess I'm going to take back my statement. They're buying time, if you will. But even the low saturation of the third at this point in time is kind of a nice thing for PtitDrogo to see. He's going to show up to the natural. He's not being surrounded by units, so he's going to go ahead and unshade here. Okay. And now here come the Oracles that perhaps, okay, good pullback by Snute so far. He's losing a few drones, and the recall out does save the life of the Adepts. Overall, a nice exchange for Snute, but not the worst thing for PtitDrogo either. He's got some Adepts that do survive. He's got the Oracles, and he saw that it's Roaches, which means his third should be mostly safe.
Yeah, more Roaches and lings being made on just 51 workers, though, so maybe Snute is going to be committing a little harder to this than originally it looked like.
Yeah, you know, if you see Adepts like that and it doesn't do that much damage, it can kind of make you think, okay, well, he's not going to, you know, what is he going to warp in? A bunch of Stalkers? That's not great. He probably doesn't have an Immortal or 2. He's not making a Void Ray or something. I should be okay. And now with PtitDrogo, by the way, using some energy over here, he needed all of that energy over here to have any kind of defense at all. I think Snute sensed this really well.
Okay, the Roaches actually move forward first. The lings following up behind. The Roaches getting on top of the sentries. The Oracles, like you said, have next to no energy. And Snute It looks like he's already broken Drogo at this point.
Yep, good read by Snute. I do think if the Oracles had more of their energy, that they'd perhaps be putting a bigger dent into this and maybe save the third. Even that's a little bit of a long shot, though. But that's neither here nor there because PtitDrogo's fighting for his life at this point in time. Now, Snute making an interesting choice. He's going to pull back and go into the natural. There's an Immortal there. If he doesn't win this, well, I was about to say if he doesn't win this fight in a big way, it's going to be tough, but he's going to win this fight in a big way. It's just Zealots and the Immortal dies.
Yeah, even if he gets cleaned up at this point, he's done so much economic damage by not only killing off a bunch of these workers, and he's still killing more, but he also has a few links working away at that third, confirming that this is going to go to a game 3.
These have been some pretty fast. At least, you know, it's not 2-0 like we had yesterday.
Yeah.
It's been, we're going to game 3 again, but even the first 2 games feel like they're very quick, right?
I feel like even in that first series that we had of Mana versus Rail, a lot of the games are being decided in kind of like single decisive moments, and that's sort of what we're seeing in this series as well. Yeah,
that can happen when high-powered players clash like this. But again, I do have to give another just tip of the hat over to Snute. It was a really good read by him. And it was a good read. Like I said, we're not going to know, but I think even with full or more energy on those Oracles, he still probably gets the third, which is at least worth it. And then it becomes a question of how much does PtitDrogo commit to defending that third? If he pulls everything, pulls his army, and just sits back, then it's interesting because the Oracles will get their pound of flesh. The third does die, which does suck for Protoss, but if you don't lose that army, maybe you can snowball off of that. Again, I'm getting really into hypothetical territories here, but it's not the case. Unfortunately, it goes for that harass, really late harass, doesn't see the army that's coming around the map, and that's gonna be it.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we get ready to move into game number 3. We'll see if Snute decides to do something a little bit more aggressive again, because, I mean, that in a weird way, that is the second game that we've seen Snute try to go for something aggressive. I know the lurker play didn't really quite work out as, like, it never got up to it, basically, because he died before that. But that was intended to be a very aggressive teching up play, to be very aggressive with the lurkers. So I wonder if he's going to try and do something again, if this is sort of just what he's feeling in PvZ or ZVP right now, or if he is now saying, okay, I've thrown out some of my weird stuff. Now you have to respect it. Now I can play my normal good old macro game that Snute's known for.
Well, I love it. I always wish I have a better answer to this because as a player, I really struggle with this concept where you're exactly right. He's shown aggression in the first 2 games. One game, unfortunately, didn't work out. The other, it did. PtitDrogo is going to be the guy that has to answer that question ultimately because he has seen aggression from Snute, but Snute is known for a little bit more lack of aggression. Now, that's been less true in Legacy of the Void. We've definitely seen Snute kind of break away from that and go closer to 50-50, but you only got one more game to go, right? And we've actually seen both games, as you pointed out, kind of determined by very poignant moments, like a misread and for both players, actually, on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's been it. So it's kind of been a little bit of a whiplash best of 3. We'll have to see who can mentally recover the best.
Yeah, when I actually ask you as we wait for the game to load up into Lost and Found, in that last game, there were some moments where you say, okay, well, the Protoss players, they like to go for Oracles because it also is one of the key things is you're always scouting your opponent. You're constantly scouting your opponent. Do you feel like there's things that Drogo would have liked to have seen in that last game to see the Lings and Roaches coming out a little earlier to react to that?
Oh, absolutely. The Adepts saw a decent number of Roaches, so that's where we kind of look to PtitDrogo and say, oh, you made a mistake. But to your point, if he's just being more active with the Oracles leading up to that, because they definitely were back at home mostly, you're going to see the ramp up of units. And if you start to see Roaches coming out and your Adepts are just halfway across the map, you might decide not to do that. Or even if after you do the Adept harass, you see more Roaches coming out after you've done what you tried to do economic damage with, then you definitely start making different choices.
Okay, we'll see how things go in game number 3, decider match. We're going to be hopping into the bottom left-hand side of the map, top of the blue Zerg player from Team Liquid. It is Snute. And spawning up here in the top right, we have our red Protoss player. Known for his good old aggression as a Protoss, it is Drogo.
Drone killer nicknamed by MC, huh?
Yeah, MC getting back in that StarCraft scene lately as well. Not just through the documentary. I think has he been streaming again?
I don't know.
Or am I mistaking someone?
I don't think so.
I think I'm probably just thinking of parting.
He definitely said that he wants to stream, I believe. So we'll hopefully
maybe that was it. Yeah.
So far, nothing to report. These guys do have their openings that they do enjoy. And if you talk about Lost and Found, unfortunately, you're not going to hear anything super interesting from me that we didn't talk about yesterday, where This is also just a nice straight up map. There's a lot of rocks that you can use to kind of expand your entry points into the third and towards the natural. But otherwise, you got a fairly safe third, you got a decent fourth to take, and that's kind of what you ask for in your gridiron, who's the best player type of map.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. This map, I feel, before Austin, and it's so funny how quickly the map pool changed and everything for everyone's perception. But this was kind of like the standard map right before Austin. And then it kind of became Dreamcatcher, and now it's sort of been Dreamcatcher since. But this is still, I would say, like second most quote-unquote standard well-picked map.
Or Catalyst, yeah.
Yeah, Catalyst as well.
Map pool is actually pretty full of maps that I think players are mostly happy to play on, so that's interesting. But I would not be surprised to see that Stargate.
Yep.
There it is. And the only question here is, in the first game we had Oracle, then Phoenix, and then we had double Oracle in the second game. In the third game, what could it be? And all of it's viable, by the way. You can go just pure Phoenix. We've seen that. You can go Void Ray if you're worried about Roach. I would say Void Ray is the lesser option, but you still do see it from time to time. I think PtitDrogo is the kind of guy who would go Phoenix, Oracle, and probably return to a very similar build we saw in the first game, because that's the one that got him the win.
Yeah, I would not hate something like that either. Of course, there are a lot of different things that you can do. I mean, we've even been seeing some of the double Stargate openings that have been making its rounds in the scene a bit. But I agree. When I think of PtitDrogo, I think a lot about his adept play. I think a lot about his just general gateway aggression and stuff. So we'll see if he can make something happen. Adept for now, just getting some basic scouting information, having a backup. But he goes for that Phoenix first. Likely going to be followed up with that Oracle like you were talking about.
Yep. And then the follow-up to that, we'll have to see, because that's very important.
Wall is down right now, and these Lings actually do manage to make their way forward.
Yeah. They don't get much done, though, I think. They're going to pop up and see everything that they will know anyways. Like, Stargate's not going to be hidden. There's no tech behind that that's not what... Wow, okay. That probe...
little ballsy of that probe.
Vendetta there, yeah.
This gets really annoying.
Yeah. It's interesting. What he's doing right now is definitely paying off. It was 4 Lings. Ooh, wow. Even getting some energy off the Oracle. It was 4 Lings that were just doomed the second they kind of committed to it. So for them to get a probe, pull off some probes, that's all nice. Because it could have just been they died to a couple Oracles and then nothing really gets accomplished. So in that regard, nice.
Okay, well, that's going to buy Snute a little bit more time before he needs to get up those portcallers, since the Oracle not only used a bit of its energy, but it also was just staying at home dealing with the Lings for a little bit longer. We do have a Robo and Twilight Council follow-up here from Drogo, and it looks like a rip.
Yep. Out of there. 1 Observer down.
Melee.
Last +1 melee there for our Zerg players, so that is going to be something different. And I actually have to say I really like it. It's very good against those Zealot styles. You should have that +1 by the time charge lots do show up. Getting a few drone kills here, though.
Oh, Oracle getting really low. It does go down. Even the Phoenix might end up falling here. Oh, that's really rough. Because losing the Oracle, you never feel good as a Protoss player. Losing the Oracle and the Phoenix, you lose most of your scouting information.
It's bad. It's definitely not good. He's doing the he's adding the 4 gateways in the Templar archives as well. I think, like I said, I kind of call this. He's just going to flat out do exactly what we saw game 1. But to your point, Dear Dragon, down an Oracle and a Phoenix, it is a bit different. The scouting information is going to be a lot less. Now, I think with that poke in there, he saw the evolution chamber, and you can kind of see it wiggling and jiggling. So the composition will be different. He does know that. And he actually saw no lair as well, which is information.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, because last game the lair came down at the natural. He did eventually, he did scout out all 3 of the bases, but not necessarily all at the same time. Maybe something tricky is happening, but I agree. There might be some suspicions like, okay, the lair may have come down a little bit later.
This is quite the find, by the way, as well, because he'd like to be warping in some Templar, but he can't do it when it's found by these Lings.
Yep. Having to delay that for quite a bit. Might even have to try and do it inside the main base, but that's where the Queens are, so where do you warp stuff in?
Well, he's just being dislodged. You know, he's lost the Oracle, he lost the Phoenix, and now he wanted to do an Archon drop, but that too is being put off. So he's going to march across the map and try to get something done there. But Snute finding this, and even these Lings, again, if they just straight up die, that's fine. They're getting information that this Protoss, its army comp, and what it's doing in the middle of the map are all here.
The warp-in is happening down on the low ground. It looks like charge has been revealed as well, as And now Snute, he might actually be able to segment off and catch these Zealots before they regroup with the rest of the army. No, the rest of the army is already here. We got the Archons. I think a small portion of it is still making its way across the map, but Snute, he has been making a lot of units for the past few minutes. He's got 16 Roaches, 22 Lings, and he's even got Baneling Nest finished up, Baneling Speed on the way.
No, this becomes escape for PtitDrogo, and with that Warpin, I don't think he knows. He's going to actually commit to this. Baneling Speed should finish up by the time we fight. I think there's a decent number of Banelings.
He doesn't have any Banelings yet, but he's starting up 8 Banelings now, so he's going to have them. And funny enough, Drogo is waiting for his Archons to finish up, and also going for some light harassment in the main base. So this is actually going to buy time for the Banelings.
Yep, I'm going to finish here.
7 drones is not bad, though.
It's not bad, but it comes down to the army fight, because if you lose the army as a Protoss player, it is over. But PtitDrogo, he's kind of waffling. If he can get out of here with a saturated third, and Snute, by the way, is only on his third. Yeah, if he can get out of here, this is really good for PtitDrogo, even though he's down in supply by a lot.
Yep. Recalls out, has the War Prism loaded up with 4 Zealots. He's been actually probing up a little bit behind this.
Yep.
And off of those 7 worker kills, he's going to have that economic advantage. And Snute is going to be almost forced into a position where he has to do something with these units.
You know, I do agree. But look at the upgrades up there. He's actually got some Hydra stuff coming in. He's still adding drones. I actually think this is a really, like, just situationally, a very tough spot for Snute. He is going across the map with his army, but it's at a really awkward time. He's not resupplying behind this. He's droning. And that means that there's no units back here to deal with this except for...
Oh my god, he's pulling the whole army back for just the War Prism.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think he's actually just not committing to it.
Okay. I was a little worried.
Yeah, he was droning behind that.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, he did move close enough over the natural. I guess he must have seen the army positioning, kind of seen that it was going to be difficult to move in. I thought he was going to move in from maybe the south side of the third, but...
Both these guys, man. What I like about it from PtitDrogo, though, is Protoss has more kind of escapability. The recall is on cooldown for right now, but this spot right here, which is typically what the Oracle or Phoenix would have seen, is really good. That's kind of a late 4th, so he's got to say to himself, I'm okay on expansions. He's taking his own 4th at about the same time. But he sees a ton of Lings, a ton of Banelings, Roaches, and Ravagers. And that's the kind of army that if you just have Zealots, they can become really ineffective very fast. So that's why it's nice that Storm's finishing here. And a few more Archons, and all of a sudden that composition becomes the blender to that kind of Zerg army.
And this is becoming that super ideal Protoss, a mid-game army, and even kind of moving toward the late game. We start seeing Protoss players get really effective as that Immortal count starts getting higher, higher, and higher.
Some units, I think those are all Lings maybe, and Banelings trailing behind.
Oh, down here?
Oh, right there. That is just weird, because that's like 1/3 of his army, and what is it doing?
I guess it's a pretty mobile army, especially compared to like Immortals and Archons, so you can kind of escape if you find yourself in an awkward spot.
Yeah, okay. I can see what you're saying. Now, Hydra's coming out awkwardly as well. There is no Lurker Den, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope, don't believe so.
So the Hydras are kind of weird. I like a fast Lurker Den off of this. I'm sure he'll eventually get to it. But Hydras with this many Lings and Roaches and Ravagers and Banelings becomes a bit of a cumbersome army, and if you just get carpeted in Storm, it gets kind of weird. But we'll see if Snute can execute. He's about max, so we can also say with that army, he's kind of looking to shave off some units, right? Like, he doesn't want to sit on Lings for this long, I don't think.
Probably not. There's finally that Lurker Den and an Infestation Pit being thrown down, so maybe looking to get up to that Hive Tech and get that Lurker upgrade as soon as possible. But here comes the big attack from Drogo. He's
so awkward. He's just walking in. His Immortals are exposed. Here come the Banelings, and they connect on a lot of those guys. Where are all the Zealots? There has to be a counterattack or something. But he's just so out of position, he just kind of walked into this.
The War Prism's getting focus fire down by the Hydras. Only 2 Zealots complete their warping. And Snute has so much army supply left over. He's almost doubled the supply of Drogo at this point.
Oh my god. What the... both these guys, this whole game has been like a giant bonfire, but like a really irresponsible one, like 40-foot flames, and both these guys are dancing around it. Well, PtitDrogo just tripped on his shoelaces and fell into the fire. He walked into that, stretching his army completely out of position, and just gets bopped for free.
One decisive moment, Jeff. This entire day, one decisive moment.
All right, so here's the thing. Oh my god, I'll let this play out, I guess, but we'll just see Snute cleaning up a Protoss. that gift-wrapped the game. Snute advances. Here you go. PtitDrogo earlier tweeted that he is playing from Korea, so he was talking about how the ping's going to be an issue. And certainly on the micro level, he's absolutely right. But unfortunately, and PtitDrogo's my friend, there's no excuse there. That's just army movement. He literally just was hoping that the Zerg army did not see this coming, was out of position. But when you get towards the mid-game and Hive Tech starting to take shape and armies are maxed out, it's really tough to play the game just saying, I'm going to move to his 4th and hope that nothing sees this. Because if it does see it, they're going to take an engagement that is comically favorable to them. I mean, we all make those mistakes, but unfortunately, this is WCS, and when you make that mistake, it could mean the difference between you vying for a ticket to BlizzCon and you watching your peers do it. And PtitDrogo is one of the best in the business, so this is really, that's tough. That's a tough thing to watch.
Yeah, and I actually want to say, like, you know, Snute, going back to, I guess, like, the move-outs and stuff, I 100% agree. Drogo moving out like that and kind of having that limbo line of units, absolutely the thing that gets punished there. Snute being able to spot it out by being very active with his units out on the map, and being able to then punish it and say, like, okay, I have 3 seconds to seize this opportunity and push in with all my Banelings and punish this. Yeah. That was, I think, what also allowed him to actually capitalize on the mistake of Drogo.
You're doing the supportive mother thing again, which is good. I mean, a Zerg that's won almost $500,000 should be expected to see a maxed out Protoss army that's outside of your 4th. It's the Protoss that I'm judging because, you know, PtitDrogo is a better player than just, like, move commanding his army there and then be like, oh, damn, it was found. It's just can't happen at that stage.
Yeah.
As Snute pointed out.
Well, Drogo is not going to be out of it just yet. He's going to be going down to that losers match where he's going to face off versus Rail. And the loser of that is going to be knocked out of WCS Challenger. And yesterday we already had some pretty crazy upsets. So we'll see if things are going to happen again as we move into that next match after a short break of Rail versus Drogo.